they've discovered that a critical parameter is the ratio of the speed of the tip of the rotor as it goes through the water, which is the speed you're talking about, to the speed of the wind or the current itself. Okay, it's called the tip speed ratio. And they found that they can design rotors that are most efficient with tip speed ratios of 6 or 7. Now, in the air, roughly speaking, the wind blows about 10 times the speed of the currents that we're working with. Okay. Well, because the tip speed ratio is the same, that means the speeds of the tips of the water rotors are going to be about 1/10 of the speed of wind turbine rotors. And so that's an important consideration with these environmental effects because, you know, tip speed ratios for wind systems, especially the great big ones, get pretty fast. Our tip speed ratios are going to be about 10% of that. And if you think about fish, most fish are pretty nimble. They're agile. They can dodge. If you've been diving and tried to catch fish, you know, it takes a pretty dumb fish to get caught. And so we think that most fish are going to be able to kind of avoid any issues with these rotors. We are concerned about sea turtles. And so we have actually a fairly robust sea turtle research program to look at the issues with them.
Speaking of that, how fast is the stream moving?
It moves at about, the fastest parts of it move at about 4 to 5 knots, which is, you know, 4.5 to 6 miles per hour, something like that.
How will you gauge what the impact is on aquatic life? I mean, when it's moving by that quickly, how are you going to know whether you actually clip something, or I'm just curious how
that's the purpose of the platform and the observations that we're going to make. The scientific community has a whole lot of different ways to look into this. One is to do population studies. So we go out, we have the thing anchored there. It's just anchored there like a weather buoy, and we can make observations of the critters that kind of swim by. Now, it's an interesting problem because whenever you have anything out in the ocean, it becomes what is called a fish aggregating device. Fish like to hang out under it. It's in the shade. There's crud growing on there's algae and barnacles and stuff growing on your pontoons or whatever, and the little fish eat those, and the big fish eat the little fish, so you get fish hanging out. Pretty soon you get fishermen hanging out, you know. But we can do population studies of the creatures that basically swim by, and then we're going to have underwater cameras and so on to watch for the kinds of things you're talking about.
Can I add to that?
I'm dominating.
Example from conventional hydropower, where the much more restricted channels, much quicker moving rotors and that sort of thing, where they've done a lot of research and the fisheries are able to avoid or survive contact with the blade. In our case, we're much more concerned with the endangered or threatened species like the turtles, like marine mammals and that sort of thing. With those specific species, you know, we're able to either identify them visually or acoustically or some other way in the water that we can sort of keep track of how their proximity to the devices and that sort of thing. And like Howard was saying, really the only way to determine how they interact with the devices is to put one in there and then observe it. The other interesting note to make is that our system is instrumented to measure its vibrations. It's got cameras on board. It's got a variety of different things that most commercial developers wouldn't put on unless they were told to put on, because it doesn't influence how they measure the technological advancement in the testing. So we've added a variety of different extra sensors just to be able to observe and make decisions.
There's anecdotal evidence to suggest that the marine mammals, dolphins and whales, are sensitive enough to underwater sound disturbances that they become aware of things like this and avoid them. And so our real concern is sea turtles, because the sea turtle scientists confirm the suspicion that sea turtles aren't like rocket scientists. And so, you know.
Would you be able to put something on it that generates a certain frequency that might resonate with them?
Yeah, and that's an idea. That would be called hazing. And of course, with an endangered species, you're not allowed to haze them, I guess. And so this is another whole set of regulatory issues that we're working through. We're actually in a pretty good position to succeed with this because the scientific community, the regulators consult with the scientists, And the scientists are real interested in what we're doing because we're going to gather data that they need. Now, when it comes time for a commercial operation to try to get a permit to put 1,000 or 1,500 of these things in the Gulf Stream, that's going to be quite a challenge. And that's a decade down the road. We're not that concerned with it at this point, but the data that we get will help them, or maybe we'll find a showstopper, we don't know.